Imagine you're standing in a tech showroom. You are surrounded by screens so thin they look like sheets of glass, displaying colors so vivid they make reality look a little bit dull. You look at the price tags and your heart skips a beat. Then you look at the names: LG, Samsung, Sony. They all claim to be the best. They all claim to have the perfect picture. But you know that in the world of high-end tech, perfect is a relative term. Welcome back to the channel. I'm Sal, and today we're going to cut through the marketing fluff. We are in 2026, and the OLED landscape has changed more in the last 24 months than it did in the previous 10 years. We've moved past the era where OLED was just about perfect blacks. Now, it's a war of brightness, artificial intelligence, and sub-pixel physics. If you're confused about whether to drop your hard-earned money on an LG G6, a Samsung S95H, or a Sony Bravia XR8, you're in the right place. By the end of this deep dive, you won't just know which brand is better, you'll know which one is better for you. Let's explain. Before we talk brands, we have to talk science. You see, OLED isn't just one thing anymore. In 2026, we essentially have two competing technologies wearing the same name tag: WOLED and QD-OLED. LG's WOLED White OLED with MLA+. This is the technology LG has championed for over a decade. It uses a white subpixel alongside red, green, and blue filters to create an image. For years, the knock on WOLED was that it couldn't get bright enough. But in 2026, LG has perfected MLA+ or micro lens array technology. Think of it like this. An OLED pixel is like a tiny light bulb. In old TVs, about 70% of that light was trapped inside the panel, bouncing around and turning into useless heat. LG's MLA+ layer places billions of microscopic lenses on top of the pixels. These act like tiny lighthouses, rescuing those trapped photons and focusing them directly toward your eyes. This is why the 2026 LG G6 can finally survive in a sunny living room. Samsung's QD-OLED, Quantum Dot OLED, this is the challenger. Instead of using filters to subtract light, it uses quantum dots to convert it. It starts with a blue OLED layer, the highest energy light. When that blue light hits a red or green quantum dot, it excites the dot and causes it to glow. The science here is the Stokes shift. It is physically much more efficient to down-convert high-energy blue light into red or green than it is to start with white light and block most of it with a filter. This gives QD-OLED its signature color volume. On a Samsung S95H, colors don't just get brighter, they stay saturated. A bright red Ferrari on a QD-OLED looks red, while on a standard OLED, it might start to look a little pinkish at max brightness. Let's address the elephant in the room, the nit war. You'll see marketing boxes for the LG G6 or Samsung S95H screaming about 3,000 or even 4,000 nits. When you hear those numbers, you might think, wow, that's brighter than a mini LED. I need to stop you right there. In the display world, peak brightness is a very specific laboratory measurement. When a brand says 4,000 nits, they are talking about a 1% or 2% window. This means a tiny pinprick of a star in a dark sky or a glint of sun on a chrome bumper might hit that number for a fraction of a second. If you fill the entire screen with white, say, you're watching a hockey game or a movie scene in a snowstorm, OLED technology hits a physical wall. Because these pixels are organic, they generate heat. If you ran an OLED at 3,000 nits across the whole screen, the panel would literally cook itself within minutes. To prevent this, every OLED has an ABL, or automatic brightness limiter. While a mini LED TV can sustain 1,000 or 2,000 nits across the entire screen indefinitely, even the best 2026 OLEDs like the LG G6 or S95H will drop down to about 250 to 350 nits for full-screen white. Sal's pro tip: do not buy an OLED expecting it to blind you like a mini LED can. If you want that searing sun feeling in a bright sunroom, mini LED is still king. Buy an OLED for the contrast, the way the 3,000 nit spark looks against a 0-nit black background. Let's start with a brand that arguably put OLED on the map, LG. In 2026, LG's lineup is spearheaded by the C6 and the G6. The LG C6 is the everyman's flagship. It's the TV that most people should probably buy. It uses the new 11 AI processor 4K Gen 3. This isn't just a fancy name. This chip is doing heavy lifting. It identifies what you're watching, whether it's a gritty 1970s film or a live cricket match, and adjust the noise reduction and sharpness pixel by pixel. But the real star is the LG G6. This model features the stacked 4-layer emission structure. In plain English, it's bright. Really bright. For a long time, the biggest complaint about OLED TVs was that you couldn't watch them in a sunny room. The G6 effectively kills that argument. With its Brightness Booster Ultimate, it rivals high-end LED TVs while keeping those signature perfect blacks. If you are a gamer, LG is almost always the default choice. Why? Because they treat gamers like first-class citizens. The 2026 models support a 16.5 Hz refresh rate. Even if your current console only does 120, this headroom ensures that as PC gaming and future consoles evolve, your TV won't be the bottleneck. They also have the most robust game optimizer menu, giving you instant control over black stabilizer and input lag settings. Buy an LG if you want the most versatile TV on the market. It's great for movies, incredible for gaming, and its WebOS 26 interface, which now includes integrated Google Gemini and Microsoft Copilot, is the snappiest it's ever been. Now, let's talk about the challenger that changed the game, Samsung. For years, Samsung stayed away from OLED, focusing on QLED. But when they finally jumped in with QD-OLED, they didn't just join the race, they tried to take it over. The 2026 flagship, the Samsung S95H, is a marvel of color science. If you put a Samsung QD-OLED next to a standard OLED, the first thing you'll notice isn't the black levels. It's the reds and greens. Because of those quantum dots, the colors have a volume that WOLED struggles to match. A sunset on a Samsung S95H doesn't just look orange. It looks like a glowing, multi-layered atmospheric event. Samsung has gone all in on something they call Vision AI. In 2026, their TVs come with a Vision AI companion. This isn't just a voice assistant. It's a system that understands the context of what's on screen. If you're watching a movie and find the dialogue too quiet, the AI doesn't just turn up the volume. It isolates the frequencies of the human voice and boosts them while keeping the background music stable. The Samsung catch: there is one thing you need to know. Samsung still does not support Dolby Vision. They use their own standard, HDR10+. Now, for the average viewer, this might not be a deal breaker. But if you're a film purist who wants to see a Netflix original or a 4K Blu-ray exactly how it was mastered in Dolby Vision, you might find this omission annoying. Buy a Samsung if you love eye candy. If you want your TV to be the centerpiece of the room, with colors that look better than real life, and if you live in a bright environment where that QD-OLED brightness can really shine, the S95H is your winner. Finally, we come to Sony. Sony is unique because they don't actually make their own OLED panels. They buy the raw panels from LG or Samsung. So why would you pay the Sony tax, which is usually a 20 to 30% premium over the others? The answer is the cognitive processor XR. Sony's philosophy is different. LG wants to give you features. Samsung wants to give you impact. Sony wants to give you accuracy. Sony's processing is designed to mimic how the human eye perceives the world. It finds the focal point of a scene, say, an actor's face, and prioritizes the detail and texture there, just like your eyes would in real life. In 2026, the Bravia XR8, specifically the B series, uses the Samsung-made QD-OLED panel, but it handles it with a much softer touch. Where Samsung might make a scene look hyper-real, Sony makes it look cinematic. If you are a movie buff who spends hours tweaking settings to get the director's intent, Sony does 99% of that work for you straight out of the box. Sony also wins the audio game with Acoustic Surface Audio Plus. Instead of traditional speakers tucked at the bottom, Sony uses actuators behind the screen to turn the actual glass panel into a speaker. When a character on the left side of the screen speaks, the sound literally comes from their mouth. In 2026, this tech has improved to the point where you might actually consider skipping a mid-range soundbar altogether. Buy a Sony if you are a cinephile. If you want the best motion handling, meaning no soap opera effect or stuttering during fast action. And if you want a TV that treats every frame of film like a piece of art, Sony is worth the extra investment. I can hear the comments section already. Sal, what about burn-in? It's the #1 question every OLED buyer has. In 2026, the short answer is stop worrying. The answer lies in deuterium stabilization. Blue OLED pixels used to be the weak link because they vibrate at high frequencies and burn out fast. Scientists solved this by replacing the hydrogen in the blue pixels with deuterium, a heavier isotope of hydrogen. Because deuterium is twice as heavy, the chemical bonds are much more stable. This has extended the life of blue pixels by a factor of 5 to 20. Every TV panel has tiny DeMura defects, localized brightness inconsistencies. In 2026, these TVs use external optical compensation, or DeMura. At the factory, a high-resolution camera reads the unique flaws of your specific panel. It then creates a digital map stored in the TV's brain. Every time you turn the TV on, the processor applies a real-time correction to ensure the screen is perfectly uniform. Let's hit the most common questions I get in the Let Sal Explain inbox. Question 1. Is 8K OLED worth it in 2026? Honestly, no. Unless you're buying an 88-inch or 97-inch screen, your eyes literally cannot see the difference between 4K and 8K at a normal viewing distance. Save your money and buy a better 4K panel instead. Question 2. Glossy versus matte screens. Samsung has introduced a matte, glance-free coating on some OLEDs. It's amazing for rooms with huge windows, but it does slightly dull the depth of the blacks. If you have light control, always go for a glossy screen. It gives you that infinite contrast that makes OLED special. Question 3. Should I wait for 2027? There's always something better next year, but 2026 is a maturity year. The tech has hit a plateau of excellence. Whether you buy now or in 12 months, the difference will be incremental. If you need a TV today, buy it today. So, let's wrap this up. I've given you a lot of info, so let's simplify it into 3 scenarios. Scenario A, the all-rounder. You watch movies, you play games, you watch the news, and you want a TV that just works and looks premium. You want the most HDMI 2.1 ports and a smart system that's easy for the whole family to use. Your choice, the LG 6X. It is the gold standard for a reason. Scenario B, the visual showstopper. You want the brightest colors possible. You want people to walk into your living room and say, wow. You don't care about Dolby Vision, and you love a sleek, ultra-modern design. Your choice, the Samsung S95H. It is the color powerhouse that redefines what a TV can look like. Scenario C, the cinema purist. You have a dedicated darkened room for movies. You watch 4K Blu-rays. You want the most natural motion and the most accurate colors. You're also a PlayStation 5 or 6 gamer and want that perfect integration. Your choice, the Sony Bravia XR8. It's more expensive, but for the discerning eye, it is the finest picture money can buy. Buying a TV in 2026 is an investment in physics and AI. Don't be fooled by the 4500 nit stickers. Remember that mini LED still owns the sustained brightness crown. But for contrast, for that ink black depth, and for a picture that feels alive, OLED is still the king. I hope this helped you understand the why behind the buy. I'm Sal, and I'll see you in the next one. Don't just watch, understand.